Agutir, we are going to discuss some of the halachas of the structure of the sukkah today. We have, I'm sure we already learned through many of the halachas of sukkah, especially these last few days. We know it says about the first day of sukkahs, why do we refer to sukkahs as rishon? Because rishon hu lachashben aveinais, until sukkahs we are very busy. We're all very busy with all the different inyanim ruchnim that we have to do, and mitzvahs that we are busy with. Getting ready for Chag HaSukkos. I'm sure everyone is utilizing their time, especially the Tzuk Yom Tishrei, L'Chila Riber. So it's definitely a time to be involved in all the inyanim of Tov and Kedusha. We're going to be focusing specifically on the walls, the structure of the sukkah, and of the halachas of the structure of the sukkah itself. We'll be discussing mainly the aspects which are halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Halacha l'Moshe Misinai means halachas which are not at all hinted to in the Torah. The psukim of the Torah do not give a remez to these halachas, but these halachas have been passed down through the Messiah, through Moshe Misinai, and these are unique chidushim which are connected to sukkah, not specifically to sukkah, but these are a set of interesting points which relate to the halachas of sukkahs and are very applicable in many, many sukkahs that we deal with. We know that the Baal Shem Tov, it's brought on the Baal Shem Tov once built a sukkah which was mamish a b'di'evidik, a sukkah which was just kosher in order to allow that people who had anything better than him would have a more mechudas sukkah than the Baal Shem Tov. But we will try see what type of sukkahs we could do in a bit of a more mechudas dika'ifim. We're going to start with the first halacha of sukkah. We're going to start with the shir of sukkah of which the Mishnah starts off. The first shir of sukkah l'mayla me'esrim amo sulah. If it can't be higher than 20 amas, that is about 30 feet. Most of us are not going to be dealing with that height of a sukkah. Obviously, that's talking about the schach. That the minimum size in the same Mishnah, it says if it's a matam asar tvachim, it is also not a kosher sukkah. Most of us are not going to be dealing with sukkahs l'mat ma'asar tvachim. However, there could be such an oifen of a sukkah l'mat ma'asar tvachim, as we'll see in a moment. A sukkah of, not l'mat ma'asar tvachim, but a sukkah of, when we deal with a sukkah of asar tvachim, let's just take a look at this sukkah, which is built here. This is a kid's built their own type of sukkah. So let's see what is the height of the sukkah. The height of this sukkah is a rather small sukkah, shorter than the height of an average person. But the height of the sukkah is, sure enough, the height of the sukkah is 110 centimeters, 43 inches, and the height of 10 tefachim is right here at, if you know the Rabbi Abraham Chaim No, 8 centimeters per tefach. 80 centimeters will already be a kosher sukkah. So this is almost 1.5 times the size of a kosher sukkah. So this sukkah is actually kosher lechatchila to sit in it. Obviously, the sukkah does not have any schach yet. Thank you very much, Mandel. But the sukkah is the correct shir, as well as it is zayin tefachim al zayin tefachim. So this sukkah would be a kosher sukkah, even though it looks rather small. Even for the height of a normal person, this sukkah would be a kosher sukkah. But you may ask, what about the walls of the sukkah? The sukkah is made of just the fencing. There's so much space, airspace. This wall is not a real wall. How would this sukkah be kosher? So let's come to the second halacha. Well, the first halacha is at the din of 10 tefachim. It's machlekes in Gemara whether or not the din of 10 tefachim is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai or not. But this is now we come to the second halacha of the din of lavud. The din of lavud is that if we have a area which has a gap of less than 3 tefachim. 3 tefachim would be something much greater than this. This is barely half a tefach. Any place less than 3 tefachim is considered completely enclosed. And therefore, in this situation, this sukkah is completely enclosed. This sukkah is completely enclosed. It does have only 3 walls. We know our makbid is brought down in Sefer Menhagim that we try to have 4 walls. That is just a issue for itself, as well as obviously there's no schach on the sukkah yet. But that is a second. That is alpidin. This sukkah, once it has schach, is a kosher sukkah. It has the right share of height, has the right share of walls, which is 7 tefachim. This sukkah is much more than 7 tefachim. 7 tefachim would be 56 centimeters. This sukkah This sukkah is almost 6 feet. This sukkah is 170 inches, 170 centimeters, 67 inches. This is much more than Zayin Tvachim, and therefore the sukkah is a kosher sukkah. That is the first nekuda of the halacha al Moshe Sinai that we are going to discuss the din of lavud. The second nekuda, we're going to discuss another halacha al Moshe Sinai, which is called good asik mechitzasa. Let's go to the biggest sukkah right now. The biggest sukkah here, as you see, is also using the din of lavud, this time just for the bigger set of walls. But you may notice that the walls do not reach the schach. There is a gap between the walls and the schach. How do we consider these walls if the walls do not reach the schach? So here we have the halacha of good asik mechitzasa, that we extend the mechitza upwards, we extend the walls upwards to the schach, to the extent that theoretically, you may notice that there was a slight cut in these woods. It was going to be a half wood sukkah. Theoretically, you could even have a half sukkah, the walls only reaching 10 tefachim, as long as the schach is directly above the walls. If the walls reach 10 tefachim, the schach is still, as long as the structure of the schach is directly above the walls, that is still considered walls for the sukkah. We actually find a similar inyan in regards to Erevin, good achsik mechitzas, the walls go upwards. There is another halacha Moshe Sinai on the other side, that if the walls do not reach the floor, we say good achis, not asik, good achis mechitzasa, that the walls go downwards and become the walls for the sukkah. I could not find the picture to show today, but there are people who sometimes you have 2 cars parked next to each other. They open up the doors of the cars to create walls, and they put schach over it. That could create an option of good achis mechitzasa, that the sukkah walls could be kosher, but you have to make sure that there's not 3 tefachim, there are not 3 tefachim to the floor, as that would be paisel the sukkah. So we discussed the share of 10 tefachim. We discussed the idea of lavud, and we discussed good achis and good asik. We'll discuss one more halacha Moshe Sinai. In this case, it's actually not such a problem, but theoretically, we'll discuss the idea of an overhang. The roof juts out slightly just above the sukkah. The roof juts out slightly just above the sukkah. Is that a problem? As mentioned, I want to have 4 walls to my sukkah. Is the wall where the roof is still connected? And if theoretically I would only have 3 walls to my sukkah, would that roof be connected? As I said, in this case, it's really not a problem because it really minimally juts out. So it's really not a problem. But the halacha Moshe Sinai says that it could jut out until 4 amis, that is about 6 feet. If the roof juts out until 4 amis, we have a special halacha called doifen akuma. Doifen akuma, a bent wall, that the wall juts out, the roof juts out over the sukkah. See it here a bit. If I would make my sukkah under this roof would still be kosher. I could make my sukkah under this roof, directly under this roof. And obviously you cannot sit under the part which has the sukkah, which has the roof on top, because you're not under the schach, but you would still be allowed to have a sukkah, and the wall would still be considered part of the walls of the sukkah. That is the last of the halacha Moshe Misinai in regards to sukkah. That is good. That is doifen akuma, a bent wall until 4 amos. We say that the wall actually bends itself over, and the top part of the wall is not considered roof. It is considered part of the wall, and the wall thereby reaches the schach. So in short, we have just discussed some of the basic halachas of sukkah. We discussed the basic height of the sukkah, a small sukkah of, as long as over 10 tefachim, it is still kosher, 10 tefachim high. That is still a kosher sukkah, as long as it is zayin tefachim by zayin tefachim. The tefach, according to Rabbi Avraham Chaim, now is about 8 centimeters. So this sukkah theoretically would be kosher mahajin as long as there is schach. We discussed the second prat of lavud, that as long as there is no 3 tefachim gap, the area is considered completely closed. And we discussed the idea of doifen akuma.